A troubling setup is forming over the next couple of days that we'll need to pay attention to. So let's take a look at the setup and show you how all this is going to play out. This is what's now Hurricane Franklin is now expected to become a major hurricane, but luckily this is expected to remain out in the open waters. But what's more concerning is down here, this area of low pressure into the Caribbean. That is now tropical depression number 10, and all systems go as it enters into the Gulf of Mexico. We've got some comfortable light conditions with complements of a cold front that's actually draped across the Great Lakes and good part of the Northeast. That is going to be diving southbound and going to replace that heat dome and much more comfortable light conditions for August type standards. But it's also going to be the steering mechanism that's actually going to be steering this area of low pressure into the Gulf and actually into Florida, and very heavy rain spreading into the southeast. So the breakdown over the next 5 days kind of looks like this. So here's on the 500 millibar, as this cold front, this trough dives southbound, that will push this ridge of high pressure back off to the west. The western states will be high and dry and very warm, if not hot, for a lot of these areas draped across the desert southwest. But in the middle of the country, you're going to be replaced with much more comfortable light conditions, more average light conditions. But yes, all eyes will be into the Gulf of Mexico as all systems go, as this what will be Idalia forming and likely going into a hurricane going into the early part of next week. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So you can subscribe to the channel and definitely help me get there, and I'll bring you all the latest updates on this channel. So let's take a look at this setup. So this is Franklin, right? Look at that look, right? This is the look you don't want to see in a hurricane. That's why it's expected to become a major hurricane. But yeah, more troublesome is down there into the Caribbean, which got a lot of cold cloud tops. This is just now coming off the coast of the Yucatan, and it's in this vicinity into the Caribbean. So right now it's got about some 35-mile-per-hour winds associated with it, but it's always going to be drifting northbound and eventually head into the Gulf of Mexico. And once it gets out in these open waters, you can see pretty clear, right? I mean, it's got all systems go. You got a lower shear environment, and yes, definitely concerning with this storm. So we'll have to pay attention to this particular setup. So here's the latest on the hurricane models, and this is what it looks like right now. So it's got some very, heavy rain even right now associated with it, and it's just now trying to get its act together. And I think it will, as it goes into much more of a favorable environment, especially as we get into your Tuesday time frame, and probably Wednesday it could be making landfall. So here's the latest track on TD10, could be which will be Idalia. This is a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression currently right now, but it is expected to lift northbound and actually become a hurricane by the time we get into Tuesday. And the latest update from the National Hurricane Center has upped the ante with this storm, now possible up to a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane. And yes, there are actually some guidance out there. It could actually intensify possibly into a major hurricane by the time we get into that time frame into Wednesday. So this is why we're concerned. This is why we're updating this storm on this channel, to keep you well aware. And now is the time to prepare if you live anywhere from Panama City all the way to Tampa with this particular storm, because it looks to be heading your way and you are within that cone of uncertainty. So here's the setup. So this is the setup by Tuesday on the jet stream. You can actually see where that cold front would be, right? It would be draped across the central portions of Texas, through Louisiana, draped across into parts of the southeast. But it's kind of put a blocking mechanism as that ridge of high pressure, shifts off back to the west. That will allow this area of low pressure to likely, go into Florida, and that's where that cone is lying in that region. And that's going to be slowing down. I mean, what's also concerning is what, even after it makes landfall, and tornadoes could be a big impact from this storm well inland, but heavy rain And likely this is going to be drifting across Georgia, South Carolina, as well as North Carolina, and could actually go back out into the Atlantic, and it could stay and remain a tropical storm actually the entire time, and likely could be, somewhat trying to stall off the coast here, producing some very heavy rain. So that's why we're concerned. It's not just a landfall aspect to this storm, it's the well inland of possible tornadoes and inland flooding and very heavy rain, with this system. So by the time we head into Monday, so here's the setup. You can see where the cold front is on the more likely on the water vapor imagery. They're actually going to bring some, much needed isolated showers to portions of Texas into central Texas along that cold front, heading into the heat of the afternoon, later on this afternoon, going into tomorrow, and it could actually spread into portions of Louisiana. This whole area across the southeast is actually going to be getting some kind of what I call pregame action along this cold front. You'll still be having some isolated showers and scattered thunderstorms with this setup along the cold front, and it's drier air replaced behind the cold front with much more comfortable light conditions. So the rainfall for the next 48 hours kind of looks like this, right? With the ridge of high pressure backing off to the west, you're under that sinking air out west. There's not much happening out there. And this is a combination of the monsoonal flow and kind of what's even left over, what was heralded with this kind of a rainmaker into New Mexico and a good portions of Colorado here. And there's the scattered, isolated, thunderstorms along that cold front into Texas, bringing some much needed rain. They're under an extreme and exceptional drought, and a lot of these areas out here and even into Louisiana could get in the action. And this is that pregame action I talked about. This is going to be along that cold front, going to be lifting some showers and thunderstorms. Some of these could actually be some isolated severe storms, especially as you head into portions of, Eastern Tennessee, headed into the Carolinas, and going into portions of Virginia here. But yes, the main setup will be what will be Idalia. So here's all the models, right? So there's more or less in line with what the cone is from the National Hurricane Center. And we'll be able to fine tune and kind of squeeze in as this actually gets closer. So remember, expected to make possible landfall by Wednesday morning, and this is Sunday, so we still got 3 to 4 days to prepare this storm. That's why you need to prepare now for this storm, because you got plenty of time to do so. But the main concern with this system is the warm waters, right? So you can see the whites are where they are now. That's where it's been spinning. It's causing that upwelling. It's bringing in that colder waters down below and bringing them to the surface, and it's kind of just hanging out as a tropical depression. But once it actually goes into out into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico, look at the trend, folks. Look at the waters getting warmer and warmer and warmer as you get closer to land. That is the concern. So this is expected to intensify and keep intensifying and likely be at its peak at landfall. That's the concern with this system. So don't let your guard down and say, hey, it's only a tropical depression. No, this is forecasted to be a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane right now. And some models could actually take it up to a minimal major hurricane by the time it actually makes landfall. So we've got 4 days to prepare, for this system. And what's more concerning is the hurricane models pretty much all in agreement of this rapidly developing. So it's taking advantage of a kind of a lower shear environment. You've got deep ocean water content. You got the loop eddy down there in the Gulf of Mexico. It's traveling over a lot of these same areas. Unfortunately, it's traveling over a similar area that Hurricane Michael did. I don't think it gets to that intensity. So, but this is an I-named storm. And that's the I-named storm is the most retired named storm out of any letter in the alphabet. And you know what happened last year with Ian? It's just a curse for the Atlantic with an I-named storm. So that is also concerning with this Idalia is not going to be bringing the most ideal situation to Florida. I can tell you that right now. And this is going to be rapidly intensifying and have a pretty significant eye associated with it by the time we head into Wednesday early, possibly Wednesday morning, likely going to be making landfall. Some very intense winds, could possibly be up to a borderline major hurricane by then. So we'll have to fine tune that. But it's got the look, right? And it's got very, very, very torrential heavy rain associated with it right around that center. And this, of course, these are right front quadrant loaded. So don't take your guard down if you're not within that cone. You could still pick up some very heavy rain on the right side just with those feeder bands. And it's not just an impact inland, landfall event. This is going to be major impacts well inland with this particular storm. So here is the cone. So this is where we're at right now. This is where it could possibly be by August the 30th, around 1 o'clock in the morning, getting close to making landfall. There's the cone of uncertainty, essentially from Panama City all the way just north of Tampa here. Within this cone, that's where it's expected to make landfall, and it could make landfall likely maybe in the overnight hours or early Wednesday morning with this storm. And it's bringing some very torrential rains. Not too often you see this of over 3-inch per hour rainfall rates. I mean, you can get that a lot of times with these tropical type systems, with these very warm waters just hanging off the coast. This is like jet fuel with this storm. 3-4-inch per hour rainfall, just torrential. Flash flooding is a huge concern. You've got all the inland, widespread, storm surge with this particular setup, and it's going to be spreading inland. So it's going to be going into Georgia, South Carolina, going into North Carolina, and then eventually possibly even going back out in the open waters of the Atlantic. So here's the spread. Here's the spread on the latest, some of the model guidance on the European, the American models are just now coming into range, but kind of gives you an idea of the very heavy rain this is kind of spitting out on this particular setup, really elongating into the southeast here and possibly going back out in the open water. So, and a lot of these guidance is actually keeping it as a possible tropical storm, even going into Thursday night, Friday. 1,000 millibar low pressure still could be actually still a tropical storm actually the entire way going over land and then heading back out into the Atlantic. So this is going to be a huge deal with, the landfall aspect of it, and also the inland tornado threat and the very heavy rain and flash flooding with this particular system. So the breakdown over the next 5 days, kind of looks like this on the 500 millibar. You got that ridge of high pressure backing off to the west. That allows between now and Thursday much more comfortable seasonal, if not below average temperatures for a good part of the northern tier, more average for the southern tier, but well above average for the western tier, as we'll be watching the landfalling with Idalia. And here's the rain for the next 5 days. So you've got the dry conditions where the west coast is under that ridge of high pressure. You've got some leftover aspects of Harold and just monsoonal flow, but the very heavy rain, obviously what sticks out like a sore thumb is what's going on into the southeast, and pretty much clear skies, drier air, on the backside of that cold front. But what's going to happen as we head towards Labor Day with that ridge, backing off to the west, it's going to come back with a vengeance. So all these areas that were under that massive heat dome is going to go back in it. I don't think it gets to that intensity again, but Labor Day weekend for the middle of the country looks extremely warm, if not hot. For a lot of these areas, we could be looking at back into a lot of heat advisories, a lot of excessive heat warnings back again. So much of the U.S. warms up for the first week of September and starts to dry out. So we'll have the remnants going back out into the open waters of the Atlantic. That's going to be replaced by that ridge of high pressure once we hit Friday, heading into the Labor Day weekend. A lot of dry conditions will be, replaced. and then the wetness will be replaced with, you know, the rain showers with that trough coming in off the Pacific Northwest. So you'll have some rain moving back in the picture in a good part of portions of like Oregon and Idaho, and entering portions of Montana by then. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update where I protect you before and after the storm.